Okay, welcome everybody to the February 2023 edition of Streets for All Happy Hour. We're so excited to have newly elected County Supervisor Lindsey Horvath with us, who's our special guest. Before we get to our conversation with the supervisor, we're going to give a quick update on our state efforts, talk about the Bionic Creek Bike Path extension, go over a few wins and fails of the month, and then we'll get to our conversation with Lindsey. Our icebreaker this time is, what current or future Metro project are you most excited about? So I think I get to answer that first, and I am going to cover the state team this time. So the project I'm most excited about, one of the projects I'm most excited about at Metro, is probably actually connecting our airport. That's something that's been so fundamental for major cities around the world, and I'm really excited for Los Angeles to catch up with the Crenshaw line and the airport connector. So the state team update is very quick. It's one slide. This is the first bill of the year that we've announced. We're doing this with Assemblymember Alex Lee, and it is all about mandating daylighting at crosswalks. So there's a big difference in line of sight for drivers when cars are essentially parked very close to the crosswalk versus when there's space between the crosswalk and where parking is permitted. So this bill will mandate that each crosswalk has at least 20 feet of red curb before parking starts or loading zones, and that should greatly increase visibility of pedestrians and cyclists and help with safety. So we're grateful to the Assembly member for doing this with us, and we're excited about it. Next up, Bionic Creek Bike Path extension. So just to remind everybody, this is an effort to extend the Bionic Creek Bike Path from Sid Kronenthal Park in Culver City to where the creek ends at Venice and Cochrane. The exciting update is we have secured financial support from Heather Hutt's office, Council District 10. We believe Supervisor Mitchell is going to be contributing, the City of Culver City, hopefully, and the Baldwin Hills Conservancy. And all this funding altogether is going to pay for the feasibility study, which is the first step in getting this to become a reality. The goal is to start the feasibility study next month, finish it by the end of the year, and apply for a construction grant in 2024, probably through the ATP program. And what's most exciting to us is we're playing a major role for the first time in an infrastructure project. So we're actually going to be the nonprofit that is receiving the money and managing the feasibility study. And we're going to be doing that with SWA and a few other partners doing the technical work. And so we're really excited to play such a major role in this exciting project. I'm going to pass it over to Josh for our first win or fail of the month.
Thanks, Michael. Our first win of the month. Well, first I'll give my my icebreaker, which is I'm very excited for the regional connector. I live close to one of the stations, and it's really going to change the way I get around the city. And I think a lot of people are underestimating how much it's going to impact transit accessibility across the LA region. But as most of you know, Hugo Soto Martinez is the new council member for CD 13. He's replacing Mitch O'Farrell, who we haven't loved. If you go to the next slide, we want to highlight a motion that he wrote in his first couple weeks in office, which asked for a report back on bus priority projects, bike infrastructure projects, and then also fixing the 10 most dangerous intersections in his district, all within the next 18 months. He also asked them to work on installing bus shelters at every single bus stop in CD 13 that currently doesn't have a shelter. All of this is super exciting. It's tangible. It's happening really fast, and it's a huge change shift from the previous council member. If you go to the next slide, he's also working on a new bike lane on Fountain Avenue. This is not on the current mobility plan, but it's really exciting. It's happening fast. And he's also been posting about riding the bus and train to work on social media. It's really great. He's a big booster for our issues, and we're super excited.
Awesome. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about another big win that we're having. So as you can see in this picture, if you've driven around LA, you've probably seen roads that look like this. This is something called street dedication. It's a unique policy that our city came up with where developers are required to widen the street just in front of the new buildings they put up when they put them up. The idea of this is that over time, every street in LA would become much wider as a result, But the actual result is what you see here in this slide. You get roads that wave in and out, that confuse people who don't know how to park or bike or drive on them. And they make our roads much less safe in general. We know that wider roads make people speed. They're worse for pedestrians. And the only real tangible impact that this policy has had is removing street trees. So everybody's agreed this is kind of a bad idea, and it would take like 100 years to even work in its intended capacity. So right before the holidays, Nithya, Mike Bonin, and Bob Blumenfield introduced a motion to basically end this practice. It's something that we've been working with them on closely. Some of you have probably gotten our emails about supporting it. And right now it's in Plum Committee after passing through transportation. So pretty soon we're probably gonna see this at City Council. We'll probably have everybody come out to try to mobilize around it because it's a really big thing that we wanna see change. And before I hand it off, I'm going to say my metro project that I'm most looking forward to is the Suburban Transit Corridor. I often work between the Valley and the West Side. I live on the West Side, and that is the one thing I need to get rid of my car and feel like I could still get around. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Olga. The metro project that I'm most excited about is the Purple Line extension. That would have really come in handy for me today when I had to go to the office from my home in Koreatown to Century City. There will be a Purple Line station just about a block from where I work. The 720 did the job today, but I would have much rather taken a less crowded train than the bus. Last month, we participated in a protest called the Die-In at City Hall. About 100 transit activists gathered in the morning in front of City Hall to commemorate the 312 people who were killed on the streets due to traffic violence in 2022. This protest was spearheaded by SAFE, which stands for Streets Are for Everyone. It was attended by Assembly Member Friedman, Senator Portantino, and Councilmember Blumenfield, also a representative from Hugo Soto Martinez's office as well too. The attendees died for 312 seconds, each second commemorating every person who was killed. So hopefully we can put an end to these kinds of protests and see a reduction in traffic violence. Unfortunately, 2022 was the most dangerous year on LA streets.
Thanks, Adrian. So 2 nights ago, the West Hollywood City Council passed a motion directing staff to implement protected bike lanes on Santa Monica Boulevard between Kings and Doheny, where existing Class 2 unprotected bike lanes exist. And then we were very happy to see that they overrode staff's recommendation and directed staff to study how at least Class 2 bike lanes could be implemented from Kings to La Brea. So this is a rendering that we did a while ago. We're really excited about this, and our vision for Santa Monica Boulevard is eventually to have it go, a bike lane go from essentially the beach all the way to Sunset Boulevard in downtown. So this is a step in that direction. A fail this month is the city of Los Angeles won $9 million from US DOT for what they called the La Brea Avenue Complete Streets project. It's a win that they got the money, and it's a win that the city is upgrading sidewalks and crosswalks, and those are great things. But the fail part of this is they're calling it a complete streets project, and there's no bike lanes, there's no bus lanes, it's not a complete street. La Brea remains just essentially for cars. And so we really encourage the city. The Bureau of Engineering has this complete streets program, that's what it's called, but it keeps producing non-complete streets. And we really would encourage them at a minimum to update their name, or better yet, to actually build complete streets. Over to Alex.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, everyone. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about Metro 605 South project. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the area, if you've ever been to the Cerritos Mall, that's nearby. So Metro currently is doing 2 different expansions. Talk to you real briefly about the 605 one. What it is, it's a 30+ million multimodal project. Unfortunately, the project's not going to add any multimodal features that aren't already there. It's part of two larger metro groupings. So one of them is the I-605 Corridor Improvement Project. So if you're familiar with that one, that is the project I'm currently fighting that would mainly destroy homes in the city of Downey, including my neighbors' houses. So Metro Los Angeles has been using the word multimodal a lot, but unfortunately, what's actually happening in practice isn't necessarily multimodal. So what they are doing is they would add approximately almost a mile-long southbound auxiliary lane without any other multimodal projects, such as protected bike lanes, fixing up the sidewalks, expanding the sidewalks. If you're familiar with the Cerritos Mall, the best way to get there, unfortunately, is by car. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. Very similar here, the Metro's 5760 project. It's lining a park. No, I think it was a golf course, actually. Golf course that's slated to be turned into a park, hopefully. And unfortunately, once again, there are 8 miles of widening car-dependent infrastructure, while there's only 600 feet of sidewalk/bike improvements. So once again, Metro Los Angeles is continuing to use the word multimodal in their improvement section, but without the multimodal features that we desperately need. So passing this back to Michael, so that way we can introduce the guest of the hour.
Thank you, Alex. Just a reminder, if you want to help out, subscribe to our emails, volunteer or donate with us, streetsforall.org/get-involved, Streets for All on all the social media channels. Quick preview for next month. We're excited to have the Vice Mayor of Culver City, Councilmember McMorrin, and that will be March 8th at 5 p.m. Lindsey, it's great to see you. Thank you for being here. Let me give you a quick introduction. I think most people are familiar with you. Supervisor Lindsey Horvath was elected to the LA County Board of Supervisors on November 8th, 2022, after serving as city council member and the longest consecutively serving mayor for the city of West Hollywood. She made history as the youngest woman to ever be elected to the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. She's the first millennial and currently the only renter to serve on the board, bringing a much needed perspective to LA County leadership. She's worked on a broad range of transportation and mobility issues. I know there's some personal experience working with her in West Hollywood, from her service as a transportation commissioner to championing metro rail projects in the district. She initiated the West Hollywood Bicycle Task Force, and through her leadership, West Hollywood was named the most walkable city in the entire state. And of course, she is now a member of the Metro Board of Directors. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I'm going to pass it over to Adrian, who's going to ask you the first question. We're going to go through a few curated questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Michael. Well, before I start with the question, would you like to answer the icebreaker on what Metro project you're most excited about?
Oh my goodness, that's a tough question. Obviously, everybody knows I've been championing Crenshaw North, and we want to make sure that happens in our lifetime. So I'm excited to make sure that's accelerated. Sepulveda project is an enormous project that absolutely must happen, connecting our valley to the west side, students to transportation, our airports to other destinations. I got lots of projects in our district that I'm excited to be working on. So, and I'm mostly excited that I get to work with all of you on it, because I know how powerful you are when you put your minds to things. So,
Awesome.
And thanks for your help on the bike lanes and WeHo.
All right. So you are noted for being the youngest woman elected to the board, an admirable achievement that speaks to your history of active leadership on pressing issues. What does this feat mean to you personally, and what should it mean to other millennials who have become a major factor in influencing policy and elections and may themselves aspire to run for office?
Oh, thank you for that question. I will steal from our vice president and say I'm the first, not the last. I will say it's exciting to be able to kick open doors that other people can come through after my service in West Hollywood. I left not one, but 2 millennials on the city council, a lot more and younger on our boards and commissions. And that's something that I have been proud of in my leadership, wherever I've gone in elected office or just in community leadership. It's important that we make sure that when we have these opportunities, it's not just about me. It's not about one person's vision or one combination of things that, got me in a door, but how do we use this opportunity to bring all of your ideas, all of your experience to bear in leadership now? And, I love opportunities where I get to speak to people younger than me and say that, you're not our future, you're our present. Your thoughts, your ideas, your experience matter now, not 30 years from now, or after you've retired, or after you've had your kids. Your lived experience needs to inform how we're making policy, how we're building community right now. And so we're hiring that way. We will be appointing to commissions that way. We will be thinking about our future as we think about all the types of experience we need to have in both the county building, in our positions of appointed leadership, and the way that we can use the platform that we have to empower people in the community in your leadership roles, because the most powerful seat you sit in as citizen is the ability to speak up and say what's going on in your daily world.
Josh, over to you.
I think that's me on the EV question.
I'm sorry, Jen.
So that's all good. So when Metro was approving its electric bus procurement, you had concerns with batteries and how Metro's purchasing power can influence human rights in countries where minerals are mined to manufacture these batteries.
Yes.
But the same concerns would also apply to the need for batteries in electric vehicles in general. So when trying to combat climate change, how do you as a policymaker prioritize electrification of vehicles versus mode shift to transit, biking, and walking? There's a common misperception that EVs are somehow going to save us from climate change, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, you're already paying attention to me at the meetings. I love accountability. I think that electrification is important, but we also have to think about what other impacts will come with those choices, and the role that we have to play in influencing how those choices are made. And so that's why I asked the question. And electrification will not solve all of our problems. And we know that we're not going to be able to move there as quickly as we need to in order to meet our climate goals. But we've got to start. We need a both and approach. And I think that making sure that we are creating opportunities for protected bike lanes, for other modes of transportation to help people get out of their cars. I'm excited about connecting rail not only to the places where people want to go, to their doctor's appointments and all of their daily routine destinations, but also to housing. And so we don't have the need for those individualized cars in the first place. So, I think there's a lot more that we need to be thinking about when we are thinking about our transportation goals. It's not, if we're building out more and more freeways to accommodate all of those cars instead of encouraging people to use mass transit, we're missing the point, and we're missing opportunities to open up green space and address other climate issues. So, it is a matrix. You're absolutely right, and we have to think about long term. What are we actually solving for? And I'm certainly going to be paying attention to that as I consider not just my role in Metro, but the work that we'll be doing in the county, and as we're hiring up, both transportation and environmental deputies, but people who will help us focus on all of those issues. And I hope that while the county doesn't have authority over incorporated areas of our respective cities that exist in my district, I do hope to make sure that we're able to use the power of this seat to prioritize working with council members in the city of Los Angeles and our incorporated cities on transportation projects that maybe with a little nudge from Metro, we can get going.
Great answer. Thank you. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Jenny. So Metro is currently the richest transit agency in the country, bolstered by Measure R and Measure M. We're also building more new rail lines than any other city in the country, which is really exciting. However, we also continue to spend billions of dollars widening highways and inducing more people to drive instead of having them consider taking our new very expensive rail and bus options. What is your stance on freeway widening? And in 2026, which is the first time the Metro Board could potentially reallocate Measure M funds if it chose to, would you support reallocating the money we spent on highway expansion to things like rail, bus, and bike improvements? And lastly, do you support putting a stop to Metro spending money on highway projects going forward?
So I am very much committed to prioritizing our funding for alternative transportation projects, mass transit, expanding our rail system, expanding buses, connected, protected bike lanes. All of those systems, I think, are the primary role of Metro, helping people get around their neighborhoods faster to reduce our CO2 emissions, connecting all of those systems to the places where people want to go. We do know that there will be some improvements to existing freeways that will come up. For my part, I'm going to look at those very closely. I'm not an absolutist, so I won't say no way, no how, but I'm going to think long and hard before we put any more investment in something that has truly been killing us in terms of our environment, in terms of the amount of time that people spend in traffic, not getting to where they need to go, the ways that our communities have been poisoned by freeways, the ways that, environmental justice issues have arisen from where freeways are placed and not placed. So I'm going to be taking a hard look at all of that, and certainly prioritizing to make sure our dollars are being spent more equitably to make sure mass transit is our priority.
And just to put a quick follow-up question, in your district, before it was your district,
Sure.
We spent over $1 billion to widen the 405, and the LA Times noted it took 9 months for
Yep.
traffic to get worse than before the widening.
Absolutely.
I guess my question is, in 2026, the board will, for the first time, be able to reallocate Measure M funds in the buckets it spends money on. Do you have any thoughts on what you might support in that reallocation?
Absolutely. There are already projects that are in the pipeline that aren't even supposed to be talked about until the 2040s, like Crenshaw was, until we prioritized, all of us working together, prioritized highlighting that route and how important it is and why we can't wait to have it developed. So there are projects that are in the pipeline. There are wish list projects that exist that we can fund instead of doing work on freeways that, just as you said, are going to expand lanes and not create the solutions that were intended. And I have to say, I don't know anybody in that region that wants to live through more construction for more traffic. So I just, I do know that there might be other parts of the county. And like I said, I will be open to hearing those arguments. But for my part in our district, I want to prioritize our dollars for mass transit, for buses and trains and bikes and all the things that help people get around this region more effectively. That's where my heart is.
Thank you. Over to you, Josh.
Thanks, Michael. So speaking of Crenshaw North, as council member in West Hollywood, you were instrumental in getting Metro to accelerate outreach and study of a northern extension of the Crenshaw line into mid-state West Hollywood. Can you give us an update on the project, and how will having a seat on the Metro board change how you advocate for it?
Yes, so we have moved into studies that I helped to get funded just before I left the council and came into my new role. And of course, when I first met with CEO Wiggins, she said, I know we're going to be talking about Crenshaw North in a different way now. So she is aware, my colleagues are aware. I've been meeting with the folks who joined the board who are a little bit newer to the board like I am. And I haven't spent as much time with getting to familiarize them with the Crenshaw Northern Extension project and why it makes so much sense. And we will be, in December, I had the opportunity to be invited to the White House for some holiday festivities, but I took the opportunity to make sure I was getting to work on finding ways that we could help fund this project earlier in the process and make sure that we have the resources that once these studies are complete, that are underway, that they don't become studies that collect dust on the shelf, but we got to keep them going. And so For my part, I know that Metro doesn't want to see that happen to studies either. So it's incumbent upon me to do the work to build with my colleagues on Metro, to build the relationships and the support with my colleagues on Metro and make sure that we're able to secure the funding. And so I will be working my heart out from state funding, federal funding, and we'll see what other opportunities might exist. But we heard loud and clear from the president last night that he wants to see transportation infrastructure built here in America. And so I am going to take him up on that and make sure he knows that I am ready to make good on that promise to the American people right here in LA.
That's great. Thank you. Next, I'm handing it over to Olga.
Thanks, Lindsay. And by the way, I'm looking forward to working with you on PSAC.
Yes.
My question is actually about a name we don't like to bring up. Bob Hertzberg
Oh my.
was against heavy rail for the Sepulveda Transit Corridor.
Yes,
he was
I've heard about that.
He was backed by quite a few loud HOAs in Bel Air and Sherman Oaks. But other than these few loud voices, basically everyone in LA is united in wanting heavy rail and not a monorail through the Sepulveda Pass. Obviously, a monorail is inaccessible. It would have stations on freeways. It's slower. It has like no passenger capacity. I mean, the reasons beyond even just the UCLA stop issue are awful. But right now, Metro is working on their environmental impact report. Where do you stand on that alignment for Sepulveda Transit Corridor and the future of that rail line?
So it's for me, as I said, on the campaign trail, it is too important for us to be taking options off the table at this point. But I think we do know that there are options that better serve the needs of more people who really need to access transportation. And so for my part, I'm looking at all of the work that has been done. While I have been following it, admittedly, I did not follow it as closely as Crenshaw North. So you can imagine I'm sinking my teeth into all of that. I went to the latest in-person round of meetings. I was in Van Nuys. I missed Sepulveda because I was at the homelessness count kickoff. But I know there was also the virtual meeting that happened. There were 3 meetings on the Sepulveda alignment to gather input. And so I'm getting up to speed on, hearing directly from folks in the ways that I did for Crenshaw North. And I think that's going to allow me, I hope, the opportunity to bring more people into the process and help get more agreement than currently exists. This alignment is too important for us to not do it, but also for us to not get it right. And just recently, there have been some opportunities that have come to my attention that might be creative solutions to meet a lot more needs for all of the reasons that you just identified. And so I think there's going to be more opportunity along the way that will also help us get more funding for the project. And I think in order for us to deliver a project that we can be proud of, we're going to need a lot more resources than we currently have allocated. So there's a lot in there. I know you're wanting a much clearer answer than I'm giving you, but I also have a responsibility to hear a public process. And now that I'm on the Metro board, and you will certainly be hearing from me. And I did, I've spoken with Michael about this as well. I'll be counting on your help to make sure that we advocate in the right ways to keep that alignment moving forward, because it's critically important for so many reasons.
You can definitely count on us. I'm going to hand it over to Alex.
Supervisor Horvath, this last question sort of wraps up a little bit about transit and how transit works within LA County, within the city of LA. Metro stations aren't really designed as a place where you yourself might grab a meal, get a coffee, a place to meet with friends, use the bathroom. Or it's not known as what is known as a third space, where there's the intersection of your home, known as the first space, and work, the second space. So I was wondering, do you have a vision for metro stations being third spaces in LA County? And if so, how would you achieve your vision?
So I think that we are looking at how metro spaces can serve a lot more community needs and be public gathering spaces, experiences of arts and culture. But I know that most immediately, we also want to make sure that they're safe spaces. I've been working with, for example, Councilmember Ulysses Hernandez and exploring the intersection of some of the safety and health issues that exist at metro stations in her district. And so we've talked about that and how we can bring services and care to the people who need it, who are going unserved at our metro stations, and help transform these spaces into places that are not only attractive to metro customers, but it can also be destinations themselves and be paired with, as I mentioned, arts and culture destinations. I just met with Frank Gehry earlier today, and he was sharing with me some of his fondest wishes for some destinations connected to transit throughout Los Angeles County, not all in my district. So I think that there are a lot of people who are thinking about exactly how those spaces can be used far beyond, just sort of the functionality of a metro station and a stop. So I welcome your thoughts and ideas into how we can visioneer metro station policy and standing up metro stations that bring community together beyond our transportation needs.
Great. Well, that brings an end to our curated questions. So we're now going to go to the audience. And the first question here from Anonymous is, how do you view the role of police on Metro moving forward?
So we will be looking at public safety contracts coming up here in the next couple of months on as it relates to Metro. For my part, I think there are different roles for different types of safety officials, ambassadors, you name it, to play. I know that Metro has stood up a security ambassador program that actually I think took from a work that we did in West Hollywood and was done in other places to stand up security ambassadors in place of in places where people with badges and guns just weren't needed. And I think that's an important program that needs to be expanded. So there is more of a presence throughout the Metro system. It has allowed people to help navigate the system, get assistance that they need. And, if it escalated to that need, that person was able to help navigate calling in additional backup for those handful of cases that were needed. I also think that we need to make sure that some of our outreach teams that the county provides and that respective cities provide to people experiencing homelessness, to people who are dealing with mental health crisis or perhaps substance use disorder. We need to make sure that they're met with those kinds of responses. And once again, not just a law enforcement response. So we're not criminalizing people for the challenges that they're facing if they are in need of a different kind of service. So for my part, I think there's a role for law enforcement to play, but they're not going to be the first responders to a lot of the calls for service that typically have fallen to law enforcement in the past because they were the only option. I'm glad to see we have different options, and I want to make sure we're investing in those.
Thank you. The next question, has micro transit like Metro Micro been a success for Metro, and is it better or worse than just having more bus service?
So we just got a report on that service. I think there's the jury's out in terms of how far we want to expand it at this point, but it has been providing a critical service. I know one area in particular is the Brentwood area for UCLA students who were calling in that service, in part because of perceived safety issues. I know that especially young women have been accessing the micro metro system a lot more because they perceive it to be a safer option for them where it's accessible. So I think there's a lot of reasons to study it and expand it. And I know that we're going to continue to look at doing that in an equitable way.
Next question is about freeways. If you could cap any freeway or part of a freeway in LA County, which one would you pick? And just for inspiration or to start the conversation, I'm going to show a graphic of the proposed Hollywood Central Park above the 101 in Hollywood,
I'm very familiar with that.
which is at the very eastern end of your district. But yeah, would love to hear your thoughts.
And what would we like to do the freeways? Just get rid of them or green them?
The question is, if you could cap any freeway or part of a freeway in LA County, which one would you pick?
Oh, well, I do think that that what has been proposed for the 101, there's certainly opportunity there. And I have to tell you, sitting in traffic on 101, as I have been from my house to downtown, has not been an ideal experience. It certainly reminds me of not just well, it reminds me just of the impacts that we all contribute to neighborhoods that we pass through in that way. So I think the 101 has the best opportunity. I like seeing the Animal Crossing that is up in Agoura Hills over the 101. It's inspiring, and we need to expand more of those and create more natural opportunities to connect our wildlife.
The next question, I don't know if this is in your jurisdiction, but you can answer it. One of the issues with commuting in LA is that our long distance commuter rail Metrolink is extremely underfunded and as a result offers poor service. Metrolink has long taken second place to Metro LA when it comes to funding. What do you think is the best way forward for Metrolink?
Well, I will take that question. I don't feel that I have as full an understanding of the issue as whoever is asking this question. So, but I will say, I do have a new colleague on the Metro board who is from Metrolink, who I can bring that question to and talk about, how we can make sure that the Metrolink system has the necessary investment to be an improved experience. If that person, I'll make sure I put my email here in the chat for folks, and whoever that is, if you want to reach out so we can follow up with you and make sure we get some more concrete answers for you, I'm happy to do that.
We have a question here about the role housing plays in mass transit. Can you talk a bit about the role housing plays in mass transit? I love things like joint development, and Metro owns so much land. Projects like West Side Commons are really inspiring. Are there any housing goals you have at the county level?
Absolutely. We must be connecting housing to transportation, period. Before my service as a supervisor, we built in particular affordable housing, mixed use housing along our transportation corridors in anticipation that it would welcome Metro Rail down Santa Monica Boulevard. So that's something that I'm quite passionate about. And I think it cannot be an afterthought or just a wish list item. It has to be mandatory. We need to be connecting our transportation systems to housing. It's the only way we're going to meet our climate goals and our housing goals. I know that there are also really special projects that Metro has been able to stand up in partnership with the county. I recently visited a restorative village that is actually in Supervisor Solis's district that was at a site that Metro owned, and now is opportunity for people who are out of a carceral system and now in a rehabilitative space that allows them to get back acclimated into community and be in a different kind of space. That is how we're reimagining justice and safety. So I think while there's obviously the homelessness crisis that we're tackling, and I brought forward our motion to declare the state of emergency on homelessness, we need to make sure that we're thinking about collectively all of the different ways people are experiencing homelessness and the kinds of housing solutions that we need to create for the different kinds of challenges we're facing.
Going back to the Sepulveda Transit Corridor, there's a question, would you consider lending your name to STC for All, a coalition of organizations and supporters from across LA advocating for an accessible and equitable Sepulveda Transit Corridor that includes an on-campus UCLA stop and seamless connection to the Purple Line in Westwood?
I'd absolutely consider it. Send me the information to this email so I know what I'm signing up for before I put my name to it. Exactly, but I'm happy. It sounds like something I'm supportive of. So
sounds good. Next question. Funding is always the big issue for Metro. The funding mechanism behind Crenshaw North was interesting compared to other projects. Are there other unique funding methods you've looked at to potentially expedite other projects?
Yeah, so the big funding tool that we were looking at for Crenshaw North was an EIFD, and it's a financing mechanism that would be in partnership with the City of Los Angeles, the City of West Hollywood, and the County of Los Angeles. to take a portion of that tax funding and invest it back into the development of the project. So I know it's an option that is being explored in other projects as well. But because of the unique set of circumstances around this alignment and the cities that would be cities and county that would be participating, there's a lot of opportunity for that to yield a lot more funding for the project. So we're really excited about it. And I'm happy that John Leonard, who was at the city of West Hollywood and really understood that financial model well, has come onto my team to make sure that we are learning from that experience so we can bring it to bear, not just for a project like Crenshaw North, but apply it where else makes sense. But we're also in searching for other funding opportunities. I got some insights from some of our representatives in Washington, D.C. about what other cities are doing to get ongoing funding from the federal government invested into their local transportation systems. So I am a good student on how we get money quickly invested into our region. So I'm spending a lot of time doing that to see what else is out there where those pots of money exist, especially while we have friends in Washington in charge of them. So.
Great. Next question is about the East San Fernando Valley project down Van Nuys Boulevard. Someone points out that Van Nuys Boulevard is going to lose the planned protected bike lanes in the current plan for the project. And what will you do to get Metro to reconsider how it does the project so it doesn't happen at the expense of the bike lanes along the corridor?
Yeah, I will make sure that we certainly bring that topic up and make sure that all of the communities that would be impacted by that change get a say before we make any final decisions on that. So I appreciate you flagging that for me as we're getting into the project. We're excited about the funding that we were able to secure to keep it moving forward and make sure that the San Fernando Valley is getting its fair share of investment in transportation. We certainly want it to be a net positive, not at the expense of other modes of transportation that people rely on. And as I was referencing earlier, working in partnership with council colleagues in respective cities, I think Sherman Way is another opportunity to re-envision and reimagine what that street could look like if we added a whole lot of other options. So thinking about bikers and pedestrians, there's a lot of opportunity. I was just there today, so this morning, so excited to look at more opportunities to expand those systems in the Valley.
Someone wants to know, when's the last time you took public transit and what did you think?
When was the last time? I think I took it about a month ago. I took the Red Line and it's certainly not the experience that we want for everyone. But I do think that some of that can come from encouraging more people to use the system. I think that when we sort of abandon our transportation system to become sort of a place where people who are often forgotten about in our neighborhoods and in our communities where they seek refuge, that's what it becomes. And instead, I think we have to have a different mindset about all of that. We have to get more people riding transportation and more services onto transportation to help the people who are using it not for what it was intended, to get them the help that they need. And we had a conversation about that at our last Metro meeting. And I think that it's clear that the priorities of this board are to get people help and care and not punishment. But I think that we need to improve the rider experience.
Do you have aspirations for higher office?
I didn't know I was going to do this. So I have no plans. I'm super happy to be here. Please don't kick me out just yet. We have some really good visions for what we want to do. And as we learn how things work in this building and at Metro, I'm going to be calling on you all for a lot of help and a lot of collaboration. So don't make me go anywhere. I'm really happy here. I love being in LA and I'm excited to work with all of you.
Maybe a little premature since you're 2 months in. How how has your role as supervisor differed from your council member role? Was it harder than you imagined? Was it easier?
Well, like you said, it's just a couple months in, so I'm still, in some ways, I'm still learning. But I think that I've been able to transition a little bit more smoothly than some of my colleagues because I come from a body of 5 that is used to working with the city manager, much like this board has to work with the CEO to make sure the county works. Obviously, these seats come with a lot more executive authority. So exploring how I can use that to the best of my ability for my constituents is very exciting to see. You know, there are certain things I can say, let it be so, and it happens. So that's exciting. But I think that, you know, there's a lot that we have to learn in terms, you know, not just how the departments work, either within themselves or together in partnership, we hope. But also, you know, learning all of the dynamics and the history of the board and how that informs how people do work here. I made very clear in my speech when I was sworn in that we want to do things in a new way and we want to welcome in new voices and new perspectives. We heard a lot of support for that in the building. We've also heard some whispers about people not so happy about that. So, and we know change is hard. But for my part, I'm hoping that we get to do it in partnership with people in the building. We want to work together and help bring everyone along and help people see themselves in it rather than subject to it. But there's a lot that goes on in here on a daily basis. And we just recently had, we brought forward a governance motion that will improve transparency and accessibility. The first time Supervisor Mitchell and I brought it forward, we weren't able to get a third vote to move it forward. But it will be coming back at our next meeting, and we hope that you'll check into that meeting. It's an opportunity for you to weigh in and talk about, you know, we're asking for a third party to evaluate how we do our business in the county, how we make it more accessible, transparent, and understandable to people. I heard loud and clear on the campaign trail that a lot of people have no idea what goes on at the county. Even if they wanted to, they wouldn't know where to start on how to get something done. So I want to change that and make sure that people really understand how their county government is working for them. And so I'm already hard at work on that early in my term. So, and this also includes consideration of expanding the board. So we have more equitable representation, making sure that we have more seats on the board is an opportunity to do that, among other things. So there's a lot of good stuff in that motion. I'm happy to share it with you if you are interested in knowing more about it.
Actually, I think that is interesting because I know we've had a lot of metro questions, but I mean, LA County is so massive, both geographically and population wise. Maybe you can spend a minute explaining the role vis-a-vis incorporated cities. And I don't think you have any unincorporated LA County in your district, right?
I do actually. Topanga, the area around Topanga is unincorporated. There are some other smaller pockets, but my district actually is largely the city of Los Angeles. We have 8 other cities in addition to Los Angeles, plus the unincorporated areas. And so the county government is somewhat unique. For many cities, for incorporated cities, it's mostly the social safety net and a lot of supportive services. So things like homelessness services, supportive housing, mental health and public health services, child support and child protective services, our justice system, the courts, the sheriff's department, the district attorney's office. It is, you know, the people who are in most need of help. It also administers a lot of the state programs that help fund people who are experiencing poverty, who need additional assistance. Those programs all come through, are administered through the county. So there's a lot, people come into the county a lot that way. But in our unincorporated areas, I essentially function as their mayor. We are their land use authority, their infrastructure support. So roads and sidewalks, and you know, when the rains come, we are the body that they come to for help and support. The traffic lights and all, you know, all of the things that you count on your city for, Topanga and areas like that count on me for. So there are areas in the Santa Monica Mountains that are unincorporated beyond Topanga that that I am responsible for. And so we also are mindful of issues like high fire risk, protecting our wildlife corridors, and embracing and supporting biodiversity. But we also, so we have those kinds of responsibilities regionally, of course, but in a different way in the unincorporated areas. So it's both legislative. There are decisions that we make as a body of 5 for that are county-wide. And then there are decisions that we make independently for things within our district, although there are some things that we do for our district that then require a vote of the body as well.
I think this is probably our last question. So Metro has studied things that they plan to implement in the future to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, vehicle miles traveled, and
Yes.
congestion pricing is one of the most powerful things that other cities in the world have done to reduce vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions. Curious if you have any perspective on congestion pricing for the greater LA area.
You know, before I came to the board, Metro had approached me in my capacity as a West Hollywood council member to consider a pilot program in our city. And I said that I was open to it. I admittedly didn't see the research that they had, or, you know, we kind of didn't take it much further than that level of a conversation. But I know that a similar kind of program is being looked at on the 405. And to the extent that it would help us achieve our goals, I'm interested in and certainly open at looking at that. We don't want it to become something that you know, causes other impacts, you know, and prevents people, for example, from getting to work or school when it's the only form of transportation that they rely on. But you know, I'm certainly open to it. I know that, as you said, other countries have done it successfully. And so I really want to understand how those models have worked, so we can, as we're exploring it, make sure we do it the right way.
Great. In the last 100 seconds or so we have left, is there anything you'd like to say or add?
I just want to tell you how important this organization is. I know you probably know it, but I've watched how Streets for All has grown as an organization, being a partner to me and my community in West Hollywood, and just now the entire region. There are places your name is popping up that I just wouldn't expect. And I'm so happy about that, because it just lets me know that the work that you're doing is helping inform people throughout Los Angeles County and beyond about the important role they have to play in influencing transportation decision-making right in their own communities. And that by coming together and saying, we're not going to stop until we're able to realize the options, the alternatives, and the transportation systems we want to see in our own communities, it inspires people to do exactly what you're doing in their own neighborhoods beyond where each of you lives. So I'm just really grateful for you, for the role that you play, for the partnership that you offer, and the ways that you challenge people to think differently. You know, there are some times where we might disagree. So far, I don't think we've run into any of that, but I will say it's certainly possible. But I always like being pushed to think differently, to not just accept what we have, but to say, you know, is there a better way? And I think that's really like in the DNA of this organization. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I hope that you never give that up. Please continue pushing me, my colleagues, and help us think better and bigger.
Well, on that note, thank you so much. We're so
Absolutely.
happy to have you in that seat. And we look forward to working with you on most of everything we just talked about.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have had this time with you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
Bye.